We got a caller coming. Is it Max?
Yeah, what's up, guys?
How you doing, Max?
Doing good. A great show. I've been downloading it and watching it. I'm doing some home remodeling right now. Just put it on loudspeaker and going to town.
Cool.
Okay. I got a quick question. As I understand, dominionism is the purpose of dominionism is that the followers of that belief have the government that they installed. Do I understand this correctly? That they run the country eventually.
That's the idea.
Yeah, that's the goal.
And if that's the case, isn't this a little kind of too late to worry about that? I mean, we have God on the money, God's in the schools. We have politicians that openly worship God. We have, as a matter of fact, it's bad now to come out and say, I don't believe in God. Nobody would vote for you.
Right.
We have a president who says, God told me to go to war, in so many words. Basically, the question is, what's the big deal? We're already almost there.
We may be almost there in some regards.
I wouldn't even agree that
but
we're almost there.
I don't think that we're nearly so close
that it couldn't get a lot worse.
But the big thing is we have a secular constitution that guarantees freedoms to all of us. And right now those freedoms still exist, no matter how hard people are trying to violate them. No matter how much they blur the lines between the separation of church and state, it still exists, and continually striving to make sure that it continues to exist and that it is better understood and better implemented across the board. That's something we have to do. If we throw up our hands and say, well, they pretty much got us already, what happens when the Dominionists, which I don't think they have any chance of actually taking over, but if everybody kind of sits on their hands and ignores it, who knows? What happens when they take over is that all of a sudden those freedoms that allow us to question things, to have our own beliefs, to freely express our own beliefs, to do shows like this, to no matter how disapprovingly someone may look at you for being an atheist, still being allowed to publicly express that you don't believe in the invisible man in the sky who's going to come save us all before the end of the world. Those freedoms go away.
We don't currently have executions for heresy, so we're actually a long way from a theocratic government, no matter what it looks like.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying that that these particular individuals have the deeply nefarious goals of bringing back the Dark Ages and witch trials.
Wait till you read.
I think that a lot of the things that they've said approach that. I'd hope that people are still reasonable even in their delusions and bigotry and religiously inspired fervor. That may not be the case, and I'm not willing to test the theory. I'm not willing to sit by and say, you know what, they're already doing most of this. I'm not going to fight them. Screw it. I'm fighting them till I'm dead, or until we get the country back and the world back to, or maybe not back, as we've probably never been there worldwide or even within a nation. We get the world to a state where, you can believe whatever silly nonsense you want, but your rights and freedoms end where mine began. We both know and acknowledge this, and we live cooperatively based on those things that we agree on, and leave decisions about how an individual conscience is going to dictate somebody's actions up to the individual.
Thanks for the answer, and just real quick before I hang up, why is it that they have this policy of incrementalism where they keep pushing, just a little more, just a little more, just a little more, and then 10 years go by and all of a sudden you realize that, most of your politicians are fairly religious. What can we do to kind of push back? Because it seems like, especially in the last, 5 to 10 years in terms of religion and government, as well as scientific advances, stem cell research. Europe just built Large Hadron Collider, and we're kind of behind on that. It seems like they're pushing, but we're not. What can we do to kind of push back?
Okay, we'll go ahead and answer that offline so we can get some room for more callers. I appreciate the call, Max. What would you say we could do?
Have a tendency to lean more political than some people here would like, but I think that politics basically have to trickle up from the ground level, and there is a lot of ignorance in voters just going after people that they think represent their values, because there has been sort of a successful campaign to sort of shame and intimidate atheists into silence, and make it to the point where people who would otherwise be reasonable even accept the idea that you have to be religious to be moral. And one of the things that I believe in strongly is shaming them right back and pointing out and raising awareness of things like dominionism.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate that some of the changes have to start, and they have this. By the way, has nothing to do with atheism, and without kind of rehashing something from yesterday. I am an atheist in the sense that I don't believe in a God, but what I'm advocating is not an atheist country or an atheist world. That's not the case at all. What I'm advocating is a rational world, a secular world that is indifferent and neutral with respect to religion, where you're free to believe what you want, and so am I, but our actions, our combined actions, are not influenced by religious beliefs, and they are not showing favorance or deference to religious beliefs or ideas. I think the first course towards a solution, I think it's got to be education. We have failed miserably with regard to public education and, to some extent, private education in the United States as well.
There's a reason why Reconstructionists are so much behind homeschooling.
Yes. And there's a reason why so many Reconstructionists, Dominionists, and fundamentalists who side with their kind of ideas are pushing so hard to get creationism into school under any guise. It's why they're trying to get Bible courses into schools under any guise. They're trying to cut us off at the knees. Let's get this stuff drilled into people's head. We have a tendency to, even the non-religious in the United States, we've been kind of trained to religion is taboo. You can have discussions and arguments about all kinds of things, but as soon as somebody says, this is my sincere religious belief, all of a sudden you need to go, well, okay. And I'm saying, no, you don't. You don't get a cop-out of saying, I believe this, and my justification is based on my religious belief. All of your beliefs need to have a good, rational justification behind them. And if they don't, then you are admitting that you hold irrational beliefs. It's fine if you want to do that, but you cannot defend your position to others with reason and evidence if yours is just a matter of preference. I don't want to live in a world where there's not a God who loves me. Tough, you do. Or at least you don't have any evidence that you are living in a world like that, apart from your personal preference, or I prayed for Jesus to help me find my car keys, and there they were, right where I left them. It's silly. Education is the first thing that we've got to fix, and this is not. We hear this claim a lot about well, you're just trying to make this an atheist world, and you want to remove every reference to God from the public realm. That's not the case. Public shared realm. I mean, we're talking about government property, public property that's all of our taxes. Yeah, I don't want your Ten Commandments monument on the lawn of my Capitol building. There's no reason for it to be there. It doesn't in any way affect, the removal of it doesn't affect your ability to believe. It doesn't affect your ability to share those beliefs. You don't get to use property that I pay for to share your beliefs, although the Supreme Court seems to disagree with regard to this one monument, as Justice Breyer, apologies, invented a grandfather clause just for this one, while we removed ones in Kentucky. The idea that we need to fix education isn't, and by the way, if we remove that monument, which is where I was going, that ground doesn't become atheist ground. The removal, every blank piece of paper is not atheist paper. It's secular paper, I guess, in the sense that it doesn't contain any promotion to religion. It's neutral towards religion. And that's the thing. If I give you a blank piece of paper, You could write a beautiful poem, you could write a song, you could draw a picture, you could write down your religious beliefs, you could write down your atheistic beliefs, you could write anything you want on the paper. But when the paper is empty, it's not advocating anything. And a lawn that is not polluted with religious figures is not an atheist lawn. It's a secular lawn. It is a non-religious lawn. It represents government neutrality towards religion. And that's what we're striving for. The freedom for everybody to have their beliefs without imposing on everybody else. And I think education is a place to start.
In answer to the question, what's so bad about dominionism? How could it be much different than what we have now, where politicians are already religious? I'd like to read a quote from actually this guy who spoke up at the Wasilla Assembly of God. Again, not associating him with Sarah Palin, except for the fact that she mentioned that his prayer helped her become governor of Alaska. But this thing from the
She cheated.
Yeah, this thing from the Times Online says that the pastor, his name is, dead air, Thomas Muthie, founded his ministry with a witch hunt against a Kenyan woman who he accused of causing car accidents through demonic spells.
Nice.
According to the Christian Science Monitor, 6 months of fervent prayer and research identified the source of the witchcraft as a local woman called Mama Jane, who ran a divination center called the Emmanuel Clinic. Her alleged involvement in fortune-telling and the fact that she lived near the site of a number of fatal car accidents led Pastor Muthie to publicly declare her a witch responsible for the town's ills and order her to offer up her soul for salvation or leave Kiambu. Says the Monitor, Muthie held a crusade that brought about 200 people to Christ. They set up round-the-clock prayer intercession in the basement of a grocery store, and eventually, says the pastor, the demonic influence, the principality over Kiambu, was broken when Mama Jane fled town.
You know, I'd say that, I don't know how big Kiambu is, but I'd say that if you grab a couple hundred people and throw them in a basement to have prayer vigils, you've reduced traffic enough to where you're probably not going to see as many accidents anymore.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But granted, I'm in favor of running fortune-telling people out of town on a rail, in the sense that if they're exploiting people's emotional conditions, if they're making claims that they cannot justify as true, then I think they're engaged in fraud.
Right.
These people who claim to talk to the dead, who take money from people in order to toss them platitudes and nonsensical sayings mixed with letters of the alphabet as they try to figure out their second cousin's dog's last initial. I don't know. It's absurd, and it shouldn't be allowed, and it's disgraceful that every newspaper in the nation pretty much carries an astrology section with predictions for your star signs. Unfortunately, the general public is still so undereducated and so enamored of correlation, as this minister did, and hope for good things when they have evidently no direction and no neat reason to see hope, that they want those things. They want to get up in the morning and see their horoscope and get some guidance from somewhere, because actually facing reality on your own and making rational decisions to determine what your course of action is going to be is just too damn hard for some people. And I apologize to those people if they think that I'm belittling them, or I'm not necessarily calling you stupid. I'm calling you lazy. Thinking's hard work. But the key is you don't have to sit there and analyze every decision you make in insane detail. What you need to do is build up a tool set of critical thinking and skepticism that leads you to a more instinctive, more reliable, instinctive process of making decisions. So when somebody says something to you, your gut thing is not necessarily to believe them. because you trust them, or because this is consistent with what you already heard, or because it's what you want to be true, that your gut tells you, how does their claim match up with what I understand about reality, with what we, in a shared sense, understand about reality? And by building that tool set, it's a little easier to make those decisions, and you don't have to think all the time. Some people don't want to make the first step.
Right.
But I think that ties into the call that's on hold. So
let's take